And we are live.
There you go.
I think we're live, hopefully we are. This thing's been messing up so badly, mate. It's been messing up so badly. On every Tuesday night, we go live and my laptop's not working and all these sorts of things, but the phone seems to be working. So if you guys can see this, can hear us, I can see someone popped online.
There's one like.
There are people watching us.
They're watching us. There you go.
Yeah. So if you can see us and you can hear us, if you can smash up the like and just leave a little comment that you can hear us, and we'll get on with tonight's broadcast. There we go. Trying to get through your questions. That's a good question. Cool. Well, let's get into it. I'll come back to that question a little bit later, but just checking everyone can hear us and you can see us. I can see some likes coming up there. Someone can just write in the comments that you can hear us, see us, there's no lag, and we'll get into tonight's episode. Got lots of cool things to talk about.
Very good.
No, I haven't seen it yet. That's just a message coming through. That's just a...
No, I'm just looking at the...
Everyone watching.
Everyone watching.
People watching, but I just don't know if they can see us because it's just been freezing. So, beautiful, awesome. Thanks for that, Lecky. Appreciate that, mate. Cool. Well, lots of cool things to talk about out there that's happening in the news right now, and obviously banks are falling. Who would have thought, Wayne, that we live in a world where the banks have gone bankrupt?
Who do you trust anymore?
The banks are bankrupt. What the fuck? There we go. Well, you can't trust your government. We all know that from the last few years, but we're going into the fun stage of it now, and really, really exciting. So today, I'm going to start off with a few different things. So today's topic is investing at different ages. So tonight's episode was meant to be called Property Investing in Your 40s, but I didn't like the sound of that because I was like, I'll be heading into my 40s shortly, and everyone invests in their 40s.
I'm already there.
You're already there.
Yeah.
And with the different ages that you see, like there's different things that are required from you as you enter through different stages. So if you're 20 years old, you need different requirements to someone at 60 years old, and it depends on your actual position. So tonight we'll be looking at what you need at different stages, what you should be considering when building a portfolio, and what should be your main objection based on where you're at. But before we do that, I want to go through lots of news articles and interest rate updates. Everyone's going to ask, what's happening with the interest rate, Birchie? Where are we at? And I've got some really funny articles to get into. But someone might be watching and going, fuck, who's this guy beside Birchie today? And we'll do an introduction. A lot of people know Wayne from our investor relations team. You help out a lot of our investors out there and a lot of community members, whether it's putting them in contact with a broker or in contact with a lawyer or accountant, or with myself and booking in buyer's agency. Looking at your background, Wayne, what do you do here at the business, and how do you help people?
So investor relations, so deal with any inquiries that come through. There's a team of 6 or 7 of us, and so we're fairly busy. Been very busy in the last 12 months. So dealing with all the inquiries and helping new clients come on board, and walking them through existing clients, walking them through the buying process.
So we're going to have a few examples of some of your clients that you're working on at the moment. We're making a little list before we hopped online, and some of these investors that you've got have bought properties like 5 years ago with us. They've bought 1 or 2 properties. Some have got, like, one guy's got in the last year 9 that we just calculated. We've got some new clients in the mix that just started with like 80 grand and got 2 properties straight away. So we'll look into that a little bit later. But keep your questions for Wayne, and I'm just going to get into there's the agenda of tonight. But this one here is what is happening. I've got to talk about it. What is happening out there in the world? So I can see there's a fair few of you online. I'm constantly pulling out the cash rate, 30-day interbank cash rate futures here. And everyone keeps saying the interest rates are going to go up. The interest rates are going to go up. And I actually filmed this, and we need to get marketing to cut that video that I showed you
last
today.
week, yeah.
So I filmed this video about 6 months ago, right? And maybe
You did
3
one
months
last
ago.
week, didn't you?
No, about three months ago.
You did it this year with Gemma.
Yeah, with Gemma. So a lot of you guys and girls have seen Gemma on the videos. She likes to really test me with questions, right? She asks me lots of questions. The inflation it's like a tsunami, right? If you had a tsunami, well, when there is a tsunami, the tsunami doesn't just smash water, right? What happens with the tsunami is that the water all goes out to sea, and people are like, wow, look at the water, there's like so much beach, you can walk all the way out to the beach. If you're ever at the beach or anywhere near the beach and there's so much sand that's sitting there, be scared, right? Because it sucks all the water out and then it comes smashing in, and that's what a tsunami is. So all the liquidity is being sucked out of the system and it's going to smash back in with inflation. So we can see here now that it shows that the interest rate will be up. I said that we would see a rate cut by the end of the financial year because it was mathematically impossible. We're now forecasting here for the first rate cut to occur in June or July, and that's based on today's data. That has not seen any more banks go bankrupt or anything like that. Last week I did a live. I said we've seen the SB Bank go under and then 2 other banks that went under. And I said that there could be potential of Credit Suisse going under. And since we did last week's live, the Credit Suisse has had a rescue deal, right? So let's look at this first little article. And this is hilarious, right? Because I love reading these things. And most people are sitting there, like we look at nationally around the country, people will be sitting there going, oh shit, the bank's gone broke, the bank's gone broke, right? But I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, hang on a second. This thing is mathematically impossible. If that goes down, everything else, the systemic risk is out there is so massive, it'll blow everything up. So if we look at Janet Yellen, probably one of those, beforehand, like going back 2 years ago, everyone heard of these characters I'd never heard of beforehand, like Fauci and all these things. And Bill Gates came out and he's the health professor of the world and he's telling everyone what to do to their body. You never heard of Fauci beforehand, right? And just as much as you never heard of Fauci beforehand, a lot of people wouldn't have heard of Jerome Powell. A lot of people haven't heard of Janet Yellen. And these people are some of the most evil, sadistic people that you'll find around, but you know, we're not going to go there with them. They've come out and they've said that if the banks go under, there's the Federal Deposit Insurance Scheme, which is the FDIC, that if the bank goes bust, your 250k is saved. Now that limited to, I think it was last week, it had like 1.2 trillion or whatever it was, like 250
or something.
Yeah, it was, whatever it was like enough just to cover the first bank. But once that first bank goes under, who's going to cover the other 5,000 banks that are about to go under? And they've come out and they've said, well, we will make a decision based on a small group of us, which banks we will save and which banks we will not save. And so that just goes to show they're not here to save everybody, but they've got a big position that they have to go and save. It wasn't true, it was like 150 billion, 120 billion or something they had to cover. Now, the situation is, for them to save the amount of banks that are potentially going to blow up in the last week, they're going to have to print out like another $20 trillion, right? Another $20 trillion, just woof, right? There we go.
Yeah.
What is going to happen with inflation when that occurs? So this article here is the first one here. It reads, as bad as it gets, Credit Suisse rescue deal sparks fears of a full-blown banking crisis. Financial experts are frantically ringing alarm bells that they argue the world slides towards a major new crisis comparable to the GFC. Well, I remember back in 2018, I said this was going to happen. Everyone laughed at me and said, oh, Birch, why are you being so negative, right? And I was never negative. I was so fucking optimistic because I knew that they'd fix this, but they'll just print. And if we look at what has occurred since 2020, 200 years of printing money had occurred. And in a period of a year to 2 years, they printed basically 100% of what they printed for 200 years. And now we're at a point they tried to take out just a little bit, right? Just a little bit, just the cherry off the top, right? They couldn't do it. The whole thing blew up just from them not keep injecting into it. And we're at a position where they're probably going to have to print triple in a year. Right? And that's amazing. That's amazing. So the controversial rescue deal troubled lender Credit Suisse, and the continuing fallout from the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank indicates the world is going to slide into a crisis far worse than the GFC, one analysis has to say. Following the crunch talks mid-stopping of the stricken bank triggering a wider international meltdown, Swiss bank UBS on Sunday agreed to take over its rival Credit Suisse for $3.25 billion. Which is less than half of its closing valuation on Friday. Just put that in perspective, right? Yes, we're talking about billions of dollars, but it doesn't even seem much. Does it sound like...
Not now.
Not now, right? $1 billion is a shit, right? This is one of the largest banks in the world. Like, I actually feel fucking upset because below market value Birchie wasn't out there to pick up the bank. Imagine just going and we go away, fucking don't worry about Bella Vista. Our new office is the Credit Suisse in Sydney office, right? Imagine that as our office on Monday morning, right? And that is so cheap. And imagine how cheap this is going to look when they just print their way through this next cycle. The amount of debt that is in the system, you can't build houses quick enough. There's only one thing that they've created, which is currency or money. Our dollar will die from this. It's going to end up no different than the Zimbabwe dollar, no different than the Pengo. All the currencies that have died before it is where we're heading. Here's another article here. Report reveals high risk of downturn as recession looms. This is out yesterday. An alarming new report has weighed on a looming recession headed in our way within months, but what does it mean for Aussies? According to a new Econo-sized report by AMP senior economist Diana Musina, predictions of an approaching recession have become consensus forecast. Although global growth has improved in early 2023, particularly in the US and Europe. Notes that a gloomy outlook reflects a global period of sharp and fast interest rate hikes, which Australia is no stranger after 10 consecutive rate hikes. Said history tells us where there is a good chance the end of the central bank's tightening cycle will result in some sort of crisis or downturn as they desperately try and get inflation under control. So when we look at this information, right, this is shit that we were saying a year ago is happening right now. It's happening right now. And it gets funnier, right? It gets funnier. This one here is an article, dire warning for 200 banks at risk of Silicon Valley bank style collapse. We've seen 5 banks go bust in a week. They've printed trillions and trillions of dollars to get through this. Now there's nearly 200 US banks which are vulnerable to the same toxic recipe. We haven't seen any fallout from any of the shrapnel, right? There's an explosion, some people might die, but what about all the buildings or the people that get shot with bits of metal that are flying off it, right? What's the ramification of this yet? We haven't even seen that, but there's up to 200 banks which are here at major risk. There are 186 banks across the US that could fail if half their depositors were to withdraw their funds quickly, according to a new study. But it's not just depositors pulling their money, it's the fact that people don't have money, so they've got to pull it out and they're spending it. So the liquidity is drying up in the system. So even if they don't just pull it, and over the next 12 months they start eating into their savings, that deposit is depleting very fast. The US government insures bank deposits up to 250 grand. These at-risk banks have high numbers of uninsured depositors who the study claims are more likely to pull their funds out of fear of losing them.
The banks in New Zealand don't have that guarantee.
They don't?
They don't have the 250.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, we're getting to the fun parts, right? So if I listen to this article, I think that interest rates are going to go up. And if I read this article, I think interest rates are going to go down. So it's like you're bipolar if you're reading the news, right? You believe in it. So it says here, RBA warns it will do whatever is necessary to return inflation to the target, Well, they have. They've done everything necessary that they can, right? They've put up interest rates 3,500% in 1 year, right? 3,500% increase in the cash rate this year. Went from 10 basis points to 360 basis points. It's 3,500 higher. They have tried their best to control inflation. They couldn't even get it up to the high of the previous cycle or the low of a previous cycle. The previous cycle was capped out at about 3.5%. So they're saying now that they will not stop, the RBA will not stop until inflation is back to where it should be. Just remember, it was only 2 weeks of wearing a mask till we flattened the curve, right? Inflation is transitory, right? It's a supply chain issue because of lockdowns, right? Then it was because of China, then it was because of Ukraine, then it was because of climate change, right? All these things they start to do, they can't. They're telling you, it's just going to be for a little while, but then we see the real ramifications. I think that the big smash for this economy is going to be in the later part of this year, like October period. I actually think we'll see all the stock markets blow up, crypto markets blow up, everything will turn to shit at that period of time. But I think it will be a slow, gradual decline over the next 6 months. We'll see interest rates come down like 1%, 0.5%, 0.25%, those sort of things. They're not, the interest rate cycle going up has finished, right? And from the ramifications, Sam just wrote here, it'll 10x eventually. Everything is going to be pushed up with inflation. So we'll read this last article here, Sydney Morning Herald. It just came out this afternoon. Home buyers coin toss. The Reserve Bank puts interest rate pause on its April agenda. No shit. The banks have all gone bankrupt because they've pushed the interest rates up too high. Home buyers could be in for an Easter surprise. Wow, Easter surprise. An Easter surprise for me would be having some chocolate, some hot cross buns, waking up and going, wow, all the banks are fucking bankrupt. And they've had to have an emergency meeting, not on the first Tuesday of the month, but they've immediately dropped interest rates by 50%, right? That would be a sort of surprise for people, right? And it will happen, but it'll just happen a bit more gradually over this year. And just remember, interest rates went up at 0.25% for 10 consecutive months, right? So it's really...
They're going to come down harder.
They're going to come down shitloads harder than that. It's just, it's inevitable. And we'll go back to the chart for those of you that are just tuning in now.
But it's whether the banks pass that along too.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Yeah, they'll pass most of it on. But it is coming down harder. It'll probably go negative. Like, they're going to have to print so much money to get through this. So much. People are just randomly sending me now pictures of, hey, here I'm at the local shopping strip. There's no one. It's lunchtime. There's no cafes with anything in it, right? And it's like these places are very la-di-da, trendy, always got people there. People don't have the money. $1 million mortgage that's gone up 3%, 3.5%. The 3.5% on your $1 million mortgage is 35 grand a year. That's $700 a week. Crazy. So it goes on here. Surprise from the Reserve Bank, which is mulling a pause in its record run of interest rate rises to gauge if Australians are coping with the economic pain it is inflicting on the country. What the fuck is this article going on about, right? Like as if they give a fuck, right? Home buyers could be in for an Easter surprise from the Reserve Bank, which is mulling a pause in its record run of interest rate rises to gauge if Australians are coping with the economic pain it's inflicting on the country. They ain't doing it to fucking gauge. They've got to stop it because every bank in their system is blowing up. That's why they've got to stop this, because the whole system is not able to mathematically support the interest rates of where they're at. And last week, for those that didn't watch, can you pass this to Penway? This is from a Lynette Zhang video, so she said this. But as the interest rates go up, right? Let's say that there's the interest rate and there's the bond. You've borrowed $1 million. Your interest rate's going up, but they've borrowed this $1 million from somewhere else, and the interest rate's locked in. The higher the interest rate, the lower that the value of the bond is, right? So they're devaluing the value of the banks. The banks' values are just being wiped away. I said in 2018 that when we get through this cycle and we head into hyperinflation, everything is literally on track. Like literally from the video that I drew of the hyperinflation 2 years ago is on track. It's just not linear, let's just keep printing the money out. They've got to try and do things, but it's a bumpy ride. It's going to annihilate the whole system. It's amazing. It's really amazing. Goes on to read, amid the new forecast suggesting that the nation will slump into a per capita recession next year, they're saying that we might be in a recession next year. Inflation's going to go up because we're in a recession. Well, if we have massive inflation, let's just call it hyperinflation, and we have a recession, well, then that would be a hyperinflationary recession, which is what I talked about. I called it a hyperinflationary depression that we would have because people can't afford shit because it's just going up too high, and people lose faith in the confidence in the dollar and the money. And that's what's happening at the moment is people, when you realize what money is and you realize that you can just, if you go to get a loan at the bank, they don't just go out the bank and go get some money and go, oh, here you go, here's some money. They just go and write an IOU, just as simple as this. I owe you $1 million, right? I owe you $1 million. There's the contract, right? And now they would then package that up and sell that bond on, right? And then the Reserve Bank would go and buy these bonds up and package them up and sell them to other dickheads into their super fund, right? And that's where everyone is, and they keep everyone dumb by going, oh, you know, watch this football player in the news, or watch this TV show at Married at First Sight, and it's like the people aren't questioning what's going on here. So as they print that $1 million, let's say you bought a property, Wayne, in 2000, year 2000, right? You bought a property in 2000 for 200 grand, right? And that thing's worth $1 million now, and you owe 100 grand on it, right? So it doesn't matter, even if you own 200 grand on it, right? You sell it to me. I buy that place off you for $1 million. I don't have $1 million sitting in the bank. I'm a first home buyer. I go buy a property, and the bank gives me $1 million, right? The bank just wrote that letter in the back of the bank. It's a 500-page document, which is your mortgage contract. The bank draws it up. I go and sign my life attached to that, so I'm getting myself caught up in debt. And the bank needs to keep me alive for me to be able to pay that to fulfill my obligation, because that's an asset. And if that blows up, then I blow up, and you blow up, and the whole thing blows up. The only person that wins is the person that actually has the asset, right? But you walk away, Wayne, you bought it for 200, you owe 200 on it, and you sold it for $1 million. That transaction that you created velocity into the system means that created an extra $800,000 from you actioning that transaction, right? And that is where we're at with the banking system, though. That is where we're at with the banking system. And it's like musical chairs. You can't turn the lights off, you can't turn the lights on, you can't turn the music off. People just have to keep fucking walking around that chair, right? And there's no chair there, right? They've taken the chairs. The chairs are gone, right? And it's just amazing. So it says here, the financial... So this article here, it says that the forecast from the RBA's meeting says that we might be in a recession next year. I don't know if anyone's realised all the banks are fucking collapsed, right? We're in a recession, right? I don't know if anyone's realised that jobs are missing everywhere. Every time you go on the news, there's a different company, different business has gone bankrupt, right? To me, that would look like a recession, but they're not calling it that. The recession will come next year, apparently. And the funny thing is that they said interest rates wouldn't rise until 2024, right? They've risen interest rates and crashed. They had a whole boom and bust cycle in 12 months before the interest rates were meant to go up. They have to drop. Interest rates haven't even gone up for the first time a year ago, and we're already in a recession, and they have to reverse the course of it. Stupid of fucking people that don't believe this. So it's crazy. It's crazy. They think we're dumb. They think we're dumb. I love it. I love it. I love these guys. I love what they do.
Well, the banks are advertising more than ever now because they need your money.
They need it.
They need them.
They need it.
They need your money.
So if you go back and look at some of the banks, it was like Ubank, and then there was like CBA buying up Bank West. I don't know, and I don't want to comment on this because like it could give me like you're making up stories about the bank will come and sue you, right? But back in 2008, I heard that there was banks that were going bankrupt because they had no liquidity. So they had to go and build these new little trendy banks, and they take those banks and get the deposits. They pay like these online transaction things, and they boosted up the deposits because of these things. And they said it was powered by the Big Four bank or whatever. This is here, which recently expect the bank to take official cash rate to 4.1% in the middle of this year. Now believe it may be starting to cut by July, which is really funny, right? Because that's exactly what I had said would occur. Because mathematically, it is impossible with the levers that they are pulling. So, rates going up or down for those of you that are just tuned in. Interest rate is currently here. This is where it says we would be at today, which is just under that. Normally, this line here was way above the line, and now it has fallen. With the longer duration of it being August 2024 is here, and it's so the bottom end has fallen completely off. So it was like this last week. This is where we're at. This is where it is now, and I expect that this will fall. And I've done videos on this, many videos on this, to a point that I reckon somewhere between, if I had to put a date on our first rate cut, it would definitely be between May, June or July. And I'd probably guess around June, the first Tuesday of June this year, which is really, really cool. So if you're thinking of rate cuts, I could be wrong. I'm not the one pushing the buttons in here, but it's mathematically impossible. We've got 200 banks in doubt. Last week I said that Credit Suisse would most likely fall. Straight after the live, it's like, whoa, that one's gone. See you later. We need to get a bailout. So exciting times out there, interesting things happening, lots of opportunities. And I guess for us today, Wayne, we've got to take a deep dive and tell people, firstly, how they can take advantage of this market. And secondly, what it's like for investors at different ages to be able to start investing. Yep. So with it, what are the opportunities in this market, which is just something I'm thinking off the top of my head. Opportunities that we're seeing, people are looking for a safe haven asset to invest in. Right? Used to put your money in the bank and it'd be safe. It's the safest investment. Put your money in the bank. Well, banks are fucking gone now. You could put it in the stock market. All those companies that we invested into the banks and everything that's attached to them.
All the money's in there.
Last week, TikTok didn't have a bank account. Last week, Airbnb didn't have a bank account, right? So there's a little bit of risk there. Let's go put it in the crypto. Oh, well, I remember when Bitcoin used to sell at $80,000 and then it went down to $20,000. Now it's back to $40,000. Where is safe haven? So what we're finding is that properties that are low priced, right, the boring things I've always said, recession-proof property portfolio, below market value, upside growth, strong cash flow, those things that are like 200 grand below rebuild cost, there's a massive market out there where we're losing deals because people are going out and buying those sort of assets because they're very affordable, and you've got a lot of people that can spend less amounts of money at the moment. So you've got that. You've got rents, which are rising, which is amazing. Every time I put up my rents, right, so a lot of people don't realise, here's a little plug for my property management business. I just got an office in Western Australia, so we're going to have a Perth branch up within a month, all set up. So if you own a property in Perth, we can manage it for you. But every time, let's say I put 1,000 rents up, right? 1,000 rents at $50 per week. A normal real estate agent would be sitting there thinking, $50 a week, you'd have 1,000 tenants at your door whinging, right? But I look at it and go, fuck, $50 a week times 1,000, that's $50,000 per week, right? 50,000 per week is $2.6 million per year. So if I put up all my owners' rents by $50, which we're putting up $50 this month, and then the month after they're going up by another, or 6 months later, 8 months later, 12 months later, they're going up by another $50, $80, whatever. We put some up by $170 per week, right? $170 a week, right? Before I have any commies coming out going, oh, you're just a fucking ambulance chaser and you're preying on the people that can't afford it. It's a system, it is what it is, and I apologise, but I don't apologise because I make my decisions based on that. I put myself at a lot of risk and do the things that I do every day of the week, and everybody has the same opportunity to do so. But we put up the rents just by average of $50 a week, 1,000 rents across a portfolio of 1,000. That's $2.6 million a year that I collect. And then let's say we take 7%, 8% of that, then that's going to be $200K a year extra that I earn. So just by me being proactive for my investors, there's 200 grand a year, just two made up, right? And everybody's winning, right? They're getting extra 2.5 mil a year. So how can you be benefiting from this? Well, that's going up. Your asset value could be going up, right? You've got an asset, i.e. the bricks and the real estate. If you're buying a property for 200 grand, if you're buying a property for 1.5 mil that's, got not much infrastructure, then you're not really getting your money's worth. Yes, they say that the land's where the value's at, but it's actually the infrastructure that's built on it. If you want to build a house, you've got to have 50 different people. I'll just say 50 people, right? So you've got different trades. You've got a plumber, electrician, a painter, gyprocker, a tiler, a roof tiler, a kitchen cabinet maker, a painter, a landscaper, a concreter, all that shit, right? So you don't just have one person. So for 50 people to come together, and let's just say they all get $1,000 each out of it, right? There's 100,000 just for their trades, right? They might get 5,000. Some are getting like 20, 50, $100,000 plus the parts. So it takes all that labor, right? As inflation hits and the velocity is sloshing around in the system, these people are going to be like, no, I need more for this, I need more for that. So then the cost of the good is going up massively, right? So I'm looking at the opportunity of the asset getting inflated away. The other opportunity of buying property specifically in the market is that you're getting a debt against it, right? So I said 5 years ago that a debt will become the asset, right? It's not just the property being the asset, the debt is the asset. So if we look at it now, if I was to go to the bank and say, I'm just going to redraw it again here, just for the fun of it, right? I'm going to redraw it. So just so we can read it properly, right? I owe you $1 million. Just so we can put in the context, right? The bank draws a 500-page contract, right, like that. Wayne sells me his property. He bought it for 200, sells it for $1 million. He still owes 200 on it. He gets 800 grand. The bank takes this. They then go and sell that or get a loan against that, right? And the bank gets a loan at 98% LVR on their bonds, right? 98% LVR. So really, it is the bank that's getting a loan to give me a loan to give you your money. So if Wayne's got the asset, he controls the ability to go and get the exit from the market. If the whole market turns to shit, well then you still got the tenant over there renting off it, right? That's the opportunity, right? The risk is minimized, right? So if you have the ability, as long as you have the ability to get the bank to go get you a loan, it's like the bank is your buyer's agent for buying you the money, right? That is the opportunity. So with a property, you're controlling money that's not even yours or created with a high inflation environment. You're taking something, attaching debt to it, making someone pay it off. Your cash flow is getting inflated. It's just a recipe for fun, right? That's how people are going to become very rich and wealthy on that front. But I guess commonly asked, people think, is it too early to invest? You might have, I've got a kid at the moment and I need to call this person. He's probably watching this and he knows who he is actually. I'm just going to do a little shout out to him, like, Chris, I'm going to call you when I leave here today. I'm doing my walk. I'm going to give you a call, have a chat to you. But like, I was having a chat on the weekend, like, I've now got second generation investors, right? Investors that have done cool things and now their children are investing, right? This kid's 17, fucking saving up his deposit. The parents have instilled good practices, grow the garden in the house, grow a fruit garden, veggie garden, chickens lay the eggs, all these sorts of things. And now it's like, wow, I'm 18, I've got a job, I'm buying my first house, right? How can I kick ass at 18? So people will be sitting there going, oh, I'm too young, or I'll wait until my 30s. Well, people, the earlier you can get investing, the better, eh?
Of course.
When you're 18, you're living at home, most likely. When you're 20, you're living at home, maybe traveling. When you're 30, you might be getting a partner, which is cool because then you've got 2 incomes to work on, but suddenly you've got kids. Yeah, you've got 3 dependents. You've got yourself, your partner, and I say partner now, you've got your missus if you're a guy, or you've got the dude if you're a chick, and you've got a kid that you're going to push out. So then you've got 3 people living on 1 income, or 4 people living on 1 income. So then it becomes harder from getting the access to the finance. And then you get to the point where you've got your highest income, you've got things are going good, then you've got the highest ability to invest when you hit late 30s, 40, 45, 50. And then when you get to 50, then it's like, okay, cool, the kids have pissed off, and they're off the balance sheet. And then you've got all this income at your highest point. You've got your house that's got all this equity in it, right? And you can access to the equity, and then you can go and invest it. So 40s to 50s is great, but then when you hit at 60s, then you're going to be sitting at a point going, shit, I just need cash flow, which is very different than what you needed when you were 18. So it's at different stages, we need different things, and I think it's important for us to look at, if you're starting today, what do you need?
Mate, there's so many people out there now that just don't recognise what they need. Like, they're in their 40s, their early 50s, and they don't touch the equity in their home. So because they're scared of debt.
They're scared. They've got a bad. I always ask when you do chats with people, and then they come on to a map session, come on board for me to buy properties and whatnot. When I speak to them, one of the first questions I ask them is, what is your relationship with debt, right? And when I ask them what relationship they have with debt, I can then ascertain whether they're going to be successful or not because of how they believe and how they view the debt. And some people are very scared of debt to start off with, and then they warm to the idea, and that's, I guess, why we share all these things. No one else does it out there. Because if you can get a good relationship with debt, you understand the game that you're playing in. People don't take the time to understand the game. They just want to make some money, I want to buy some property. It's like, well, what's that property going to do? How's it going to perform? Yeah. So, we actually asked you beforehand. Well, I took Wayne for what, 4 laps of the lake?
4 laps of the lake.
4 laps of the lake, 6,000 steps. Got to get up to 20,000 a day, so I'll be doing it after here. But I asked you, just what are some of the objections that you've got at the moment with people, right? Or what are some of the things that people are facing? And you said the biggest one that you see at the moment is people can't get the debt, they're servicing stuff, right? So it's not like we've got an all-out situation out there in the market where people don't want to buy anything. We've seen that beforehand, where people don't want to buy or whatever. We've got people that can't buy because the bank has pushed up. So not only do we have an issue inside the bank, which is where those bonds are blowing up, but we've also got an issue where the bank needs to write enough money because they get paid for selling that debt, right? Now, if people can't service to get the debt, then the bank's not going to make the income. So if the bank can't make the income, well then the bank's going to go broke from that. So it's not just one prong that the banks are going to die because of their bonds, but they're going to die because they're not making the revenue that they require in the bank. So there's going to be an opportunity in the short period, right? And that is when the interest rates start its fall between May to July 2023, when the rates start to drop in there, where if interest rates drop by 1%, there's a lot of people that can afford, they've got equity in their property, and if interest rates drop by 3% today, heaps of people can service. But it take 12 months for the market, for the stock to dry up in the market and whatnot. It is in that 3-month period, 2-month period, you want to be pushing yourself and positioning yourself to be finance ready. You want to make sure that you've got all your shit ready to go get a loan. You can get your loans are in order. You've got your pay slips ready. You've got your rental letters ready. You're ready to speak to your broker and say, hey, get me the refinance. Because there's people there that might be with their second tier lender, want to go to the big four. There might be people that've got equity but can't be able to get it out because they don't service. It's in this next 3 to 6 months as rates drop,
Yeah.
servicing,
Yeah, you want to be prepared. So.
servicing will go through the roof. I just remember that. But you see people every day of the week, Wayne. Tell me, what sort of things do people, is it too young to start investing?
No, definitely not. You know, I've got a 16-year-old and 13-year-old, and they already have, you know, investment accounts.
Yeah.
So they're saving. And number one thing is to get into property when they're before 20. Yeah, that's their goal. So, you know, our daughter's working at Macca's.
Okay.
Yeah, first job. So
Systems and processes.
Yeah.
It's good.
she'll do whatever it
Yeah.
takes. You know, she's not into wanting to buy a car. You know,
Yeah.
she has a friend that the parents bought her a car and she didn't even have a learners.
Crazy.
It's crazy. You know.
And I think it's good, like, if you're, one thing I observed, it was a long while ago, since I was a teenager, one thing I observed is I was like working around people and I was like, I don't want to be there when I'm older, right? Like when you're young, everyone's older. And if you can teach your kids to be like, look around you, right? Like you might think your job is shit at 18 or 16 or 20. But if you're doing this when you're 60, that's a long time. You've been at school for 10 years, eh?
Yeah.
Like, you know, you hate your school or whatever, you get to fucking hang out with your mates all day and, you know, go down the back and smoke cigarettes in the toilet or something. I don't know, I'm not saying that people do that, but I'm just saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's your fun time of your life. It's not in a job. So if you're flipping burgers, and it's an honest job, very honest job, but if you're flipping burgers at 60, that's not a good life,
No.
right? So if you're young, you should be looking at like shit and be motivated by the things that you don't want out of your life and the person that you don't want to be. So you just need to go, okay, I'll make the sacrifices now so I'm not stuck
Yeah.
in that position in the future.
Yeah.
So, yeah. You just got a comment here from Lydia that said, it's amazing, Wayne, congratulations on your daughter building a mindset. She's an entrepreneur right there.
Well, it's writing the things of the past and what I didn't do, you know, and
Okay.
because I didn't have parents that
Yeah.
with that mindset.
Yeah,
You know, I grew up in a broken home.
Yeah.
You know, I lived with mum,
yeah,
and mum had no financial, you know,
Yeah.
savviness at all. And so it's just installing what I know over the last 20 odd years.
yeah,
And I started working when I was 13, you know,
Yeah.
delivering milk.
yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and I was always
Watch
a good
out for
saver.
the milkman,
Yeah, I was
yeah.
always a good saver, but you know, looking back in hindsight, I had opportunities which I didn't take.
Yeah,
You know, I had so many opportunities to invest,
yeah,
and missed those opportunities looking back. So
Yeah.
so I just want to install good habits. It's all about good habits and
yeah.
showing that they can do it. So yeah.
I think being young, you know, it's easy to be, let's get the coolest bag and the coolest outfit with
It's all
the brand
shoes,
name
mate.
on
It's
it.
all shoes
Or
now.
shoes.
Yeah.
I'll be out of luck. I used to wear snakeskin shoes. Did you know that? You didn't know that, right? It's,
Running around in the Bentley.
a lot of people don't realise that I don't wear shoes nowadays because they never see it, right? But I
I've
actually
never seen you wear shoes except for the
Christmas
party.
yeah. But I don't own shoes. I just prefer not to wear shoes. I walk 40 kilometres in a day and I wear thongs or sandals or
Yeah.
flip-flops.
I'm surprised they don't break.
Yeah, I broke a pair the other day in the gym. I did break a pair. The first time
Surprised
I
they
ever
let you
broke.
in the gym.
They don't know about it because it's after hours. But, I've never broken a pair of these ones. They're Archies. They're all one piece and stuff. They're very durable. But yeah, there's not an ad for them either. But yeah, like as you're young, like you could be impressionable that hey, I need to look a certain way or act a certain way or do a certain thing, and people become trapped in that. They're trying to keep up with the Joneses and you know try and look coolest and try and leave an impression. Like all those things cost money. It's not cheap to try and fit in and be cool. You know, like taking out debts and getting car loans and stuff like that all hurts. So yeah. Look at this. I've bought in the Nathan style, the no brand shirts. I've stopped making Nike rich. Exactly. It's yeah. How many steps is 40 kilometres? I think you're about 50,000 steps to get the 40 Ks. So yeah.
Depends how big you are. Nathan's 6'4", so
Yeah, I've got little legs though, so it's yeah. For some strange reason, I've got a massive torso. That's why I'm always. Wayne's tall as well. Wayne's very
we're
tall.
the same height.
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah. So, but yeah. Looking at so it's young. A lot of people here have got kids that are in their 20s or whatever. someone said their jinx, how good are Archies? Archies are amazing, they're great. I actually wanted to create a thong like them and call them the Birchies. And then I found Archies, I'm like, this is mad. So, they're great. And then you got like, you know, I remember, I was actually saying to someone the other day, when I quit my job, I was 24 years old. I worked 2 full-time jobs. I ate shit. I just did what I had to do. 1 year I had 7 days off in the whole year. I worked like 4 days a week, like 20-hour days. I just pushed myself. I still had time to go and pick up chicks, go clubbing, and I'd fit it all in, right? I just never slept. And I remember when I quit my job, it was 2009, I was 24 years old. My mates were finishing their uni degree at the time that I quit my job. And the reason why I think of that is that I actually got a scholarship type thing where I get paid up until 25 to go to uni. I was getting like 30 grand a year to go to uni or something. And I was like, I don't want that. I'm not going to take it. So I didn't take it. And I just thought it was interesting that, you know, if you can apply yourself when you're young, you've got more mileage and more years against, you know, to compound. If you're 20 to 30, what do you reckon, Wayne?
You need to get the base. You need to establish a base.
Yeah.
You know.
You got room to fuck up.
Yeah.
You got, you know, you don't have a family that you have to consider. You've got, you know, ability to find yourself. If you waste a couple of years, so be it. But you know, you've got, as an investor, if you're in your 20s, like some people are like, I want to get 100 grand a year passive income. I'm 20, I want to get there when I'm 23, right? And that's cool, there's nothing wrong with that. But as a 20-year-old, you haven't got, well, you might, but generally, you don't have $1 million worth of cash in there. You're on an income that's lower. Mm-hmm. You've got to save up, build equity, buy assets, etc. So you've got 40 years of income earning potential to get to your position. Yeah. The banks love you, so understand your position at the bank and what they want. You've got the ability to service, but you don't have the capital, so you should be looking for more equity growth and assets that are...
Yeah. And it doesn't necessarily have to be your principal place. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Don't be caught up with the emotion of wanting your own place. Yeah. If I did it all over again, I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, so.
It's I looked at the property as a vehicle. If you got $500,000, you could go and buy yourself a Lambo. But if you buy yourself a Lambo for $500,000, tomorrow you're going to have to go and pay for rego, insurance, petrol, servicing, all those sorts of things. What would be smarter is to go and buy 20 Ford Falcons. They don't make them anymore, but you know, just a sedan, a Hyundai or whatever.
Put them to work.
Put them out as Ubers, rent them out, collect the cash flow from it, and then use that cash flow to go and buy your Lambo that you want. And then you buy your Lambo, then there's still cash flow coming through, so you can use that cash flow to go pay for service, rego, and all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. A lot of people look at it, they must have the Lambo. Now, when I say the Lambo, they see principal place of residence. Like if you've got a roof over your head and a warm place to sleep for the night, you're doing well. And anything more than that is your ego saying, I must own it, I must do this.
That's what it is. It's all about ego, and it's keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
Too, so.
And I think I might piss people off by saying what I just said, right? It just came out. But I didn't get a house till I was at like 120, 130 properties. And I remember opening up, I've collected all the newspapers I was in. I used to be, people may not know, I used to be on the news all the time, and I'd collect the newspapers every time, and I had boxes, and I was like, one day I'm going to be fat, old and bald, and I'm going to have kids, and they're going to be sitting there saying, you know, Dad, you're just a fucking idiot, you know what you're talking about, pull out these things and say, look, I was skinnier than you, blah, blah, blah. And I kept them. I remember looking at the page, and I was like, there was a comment that said the Donald Trump of Western Sydney, and I was like, damn, like, I've never owned a house delivered beforehand, right? And when I bought my principal place of residence, I put up my rents, and my rents covered my mortgage at my principal place, and that's, you know, those Ford Falcons out there paying for your Lambo.
Yeah.
In your 30s, what do you reckon, Wayne?
Well, 30s, it can be a bit tougher. Your servicing might tighten up because, you know, if there's kids involved,
yeah,
you know, that affects your serviceability.
Yeah. How so?
Well, they cost money. so the banks look at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. As even if your wife or partner is off work.
Yeah.
They're classed as a dependent.
Yeah. So you got if you're I'm just making up, right, like the white picket fence shit that the world subscribers to, but you've got two people meet, they go get married, they have a kid. In that period when you got the two people as a single couple, they've got double income, no kids. But then you go to one income, kid and a spouse that's at home, you've got three people on one income. The bank doesn't like that, so you need to keep the bank happy.
Yeah.
So at that point, you might just buy your first house. You might have already got your first home, but over a period of 3 years, 5 years, a few little scams out there with Corona happening, a banking crash, all those sorts of things. We're going to see money go in. No one ever questions that, but they just see my house has gone up. It used to be 500, now it's worth $1 million. It's at that point you can go, okay, I've got equity in my property. You go, okay, I'm at a point where I'm earning money, the kids are older, the missus have gone back to work, we've got two incomes. How can we get that equity working for us? And I think that's where a lot of people that are, that make the greatest level of success get that understanding and have that aha moment. It's like, I don't need to save my way to retirement. No successful business, not even the fucking bank, right? The banks are all bankrupt, right? Not even they save up their money, and they're meant to be where you save your money. They're using debt as a debt instrument. So, yeah.
We were talking about what sort of hurdles I come across with clients. So a lot of people will question, well, with the equity, isn't that 100% loan then?
Yeah.
And what I've learned through you is as long as you're purchasing an asset that's going to create a higher return than what you're paying back.
Yeah.
That loan. So.
And that's literally how the bank works, right? If you think about it, right, the bank's borrowing the money off you at 2%, they're renting it out for 3%, they're making 1%. The bank borrows money off you at 4%, they rent it out at 6%, they're making 2%. You're borrowing the money from the bank, and then the bank's lending it to you. You have the greatest level of safety, right? You have the ability to get the money from the tenants, you have the ability to sell the asset off. The bank can't sell its asset if the things go bust, right? The bank can't sell its asset if it is underwater with its value because of leverage of the interest rate. So there's a lot more levels of protection for an individual. But just as the bank's done, they've leveraged other people's money to get that outcome. And you've got a readily available asset which you can just sell as a house.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool. So, what sort of percentage do you think? Like, say someone comes to you and they're 30 years old or 40 years old. What's the percentage of those people that would have 50 grand in their bank account, or would have no money but they've got a property that they can pull equity from?
I'd say majority would have no money.
Majority of people have no money, right?
but not have equity.
Okay.
So, in that sort of
environment.
Yeah, environment. So
people don't have money. That's the reality. Like, people might sit there and go, oh, Wayne knows this firsthand, right? We joke about it quite often. I'm always broke, right? Every day I'm constantly just throwing that money back out there to make it work for me. I don't want to hold the money. And, I don't know people we know people that have like $1 million, $2 million. And every time I see someone and they're like, oh yeah, it's good to have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. I'm like, it's, I just cringe. I think what you could be doing with that could be so far greater. You could be leveraging massively. Yeah. So,
well, that's the thing too, because when you're in your 20s, you're more risk tolerant.
Yeah.
More tolerant to take risk on.
Yeah, you got the ability to. You've got youth on your side.
You got time.
You got time. Like, if someone's 60 and they fuck up, well, then they don't have those 20 years to go and fix it up. They're going to have, not as nice sort of retirement.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Where you'll have also, when I speak to a couple, one will be risk tolerant, one will be risk averse.
Yeah.
So it's a balancing act.
Yeah.
And that's why we look to diversify the portfolio, different areas, different regions, different price points.
Yeah.
So.
And someone asked at a webinar recently, like, how do I get my missus to get on board, right? And I think some people make comments and go, you can find a new one, but that's not the answer. Is tying like if you've got a spouse, and it could be, sometimes we have the husband that calls up and it's like, yeah, I want to do this, the wife says no. Sometimes we've got the wife and the husband's the conservative one. And I think it's important that collectively as a couple, the most successful are the ones that have got common goals. They discuss it. You know, you might have a spouse, either one, that goes, oh, I'm not really into investing, but it's like, yeah, but you're not the one that's working 7 days a week. So the one that's working is the one that wants to draw back on their working ability. So how do you tie a spouse into it? I think it's important to understand what they're going to be getting out of it. So if you've got a husband or a wife that's, you know, I want to buy 5 and she wants to buy 1 or doesn't want to buy any. It's like, well, what would she be getting if you bought 10 of them? What would she be getting, or what would he be getting out of the benefit from that? It's like, well, if you can explain that person, once you get to 10 properties, they don't have to work. It's like, wow, let's go and get to 10. And without that, it's that bridge of that knowledge.
Yeah.
It's the knowledge that's missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, for myself, you know, late 30s,
Yeah.
we were at a point where we had enough in our super.
Yeah.
And we decided to set up our SMSF and
Yeah.
purchase through there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. And it's super's a whole other way. Like, people might be sitting there thinking, well, I don't. I actually spoke about this today when we're talking about Blink and the tenants that we have. Most real estate offices are just like, oh, the bloody tenants over there, whatever. But I see it as an opportunity that we have thousands of tenants that we represent via our owners that we look after. And those tenants, if they're over 40 and they've got 50 grand income, we can set up self-managed supers for those tenants. Those tenants become clients again, because no one's out there teaching tenants on how to become an investor of property.
Yeah.
So something to explore. Just remembering, if you do have a super fund, things to be mindful of, and especially in this current market, is a lot of those super funds have shares in them, international shares.
Yeah.
And those shares are generally invested into safe shares, like bank shares, right? And that's, obviously not showing as a good thing today. What about if you're 40? Wayne's looking, I'm heading there, Wayne. I'm
Catching up to me.
I'm catching up to you, yeah. I'll be a year closer this year.
Yeah, well, when you're 40, you start to think about retirement.
Yep.
You think about, okay, well, 55, 60, I've got 15, 20 years left.
Yeah.
I don't really want to be working in 20 years or even 15 years.
Yeah.
What can I do now to fast track it?
Yeah.
And yeah, so.
And I guess that's the golden years, like when someone's in their 40s, to be able to...
Kids are, well, my scenario, kids are in high school.
Yeah.
So
getting their L's and working.
Yeah. So another 3-4 years, both will be out of high school, and
yeah,
they can take on their responsibility if they want to go to uni and cover those sort of costs. So
get themselves into some more debt.
Yeah,
more
debt,
know what they're signing themselves up to.
But that frees up cash, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Frees up your income and to invest. So you really want to fast track your investments and buy the right assets.
And generally, you would have. If someone's bought a house, it's a family home, they've bought it when the kids are born or whatever, they want to get themselves in a home, they've got a home, that house has gone up, $250,000, $500,000, you've got the equity there. People come in and they're like, how can I buy 10 properties? And it's like, well, you've got $250K equity in your property. That $250K, suddenly there's 5 deposits.
Yep.
They buy 5 properties, and they go and do it all over again.
Recycle it. Yeah.
You got, when you have one property, you only have one hook in the ocean to catch a fish. When you got 5 properties, you've got another 5 hooks in the ocean. You can catch fish from each of them. If one doesn't bite, you lose the bait, then you've got another one to reel it in.
Yeah.
And what about if you're 50?
I'm not there yet. So. Well, 50. You really want sort of to invest in the right way, I guess. Maybe you want to rebalance your portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
So you might be at a stage in your 30s where you purchase 10 properties, 15 properties.
Yeah.
On the lower price point, and obviously you've got this value in all your assets. You want to consolidate.
Yeah.
So the way I see investing is, you're accumulating your assets.
Yeah.
You're then consolidating them.
Yeah.
And then you look to distribute the income. So it might be a point where you maybe sell down some, pay off some debt,
Yeah.
Get more income through. So there's all different factors there. So.
I just had a thought, right? I want to go and contact him now. I've got this client who I met before I had an office, right? And I've helped him build a wonderful portfolio. And he's actually in a retirement home now, right? And he was like, I think 65, right? When I met him, 60, 62, 63 when I met him. And when I met him, he'd bought like 3 off the plan properties. There was like early 2000s. He held them for 10 years. They sold for less than, you told me about a client today who just settled on a property last week that bought off the plan 2 years ago, right? So we've just had the biggest boom that you've ever seen, right? And the property valued in for like 50K less, right? 60K less, right? 2 years later, right? So this guy, he had a similar sort of situation, but he had to sell it because the interest rates were like 10%, 9% when I met him or whatever. And he's like, how can I recover? And he was like 60s, and I was like, just do this, 1, 2, 3, just do this. And he actually took the steps to get there. And I see him, he comes in the office to see the team, they manually enter his details into my property tracker, and he's a lovely guy, and he's built out a really nice portfolio where he thought he was screwed up because he could sell off, he could unload a bit of like cargo that was there, and he was able to fix his retirement up. So it'd be good to catch up with him, just to see how he's going. But when you get to your 60s, it's the banks and the lending is much tied up.
Yeah.
You don't have time to go and fix up your issues. You don't have the time to wait. You might have heaps of equity. You might have heaps in your super. You might have heaps of capital. But how do you, build a cash flow for your retirement? So your thoughts when you're 20 or 18 is how do I build up the asset base? But when you're older, you're like, okay, how do I, make that
Where's the cash flow?
Yeah.
The cash. So it might mean you sell off a property and buy a couple of cashies.
Yeah.
To get that income.
And I guess the younger that you started, you've got the compounding effect, like it doesn't take, 40 years. If you're starting when you're 20, you could be out of there by the time you're 30, 35.
Yeah, for sure.
What challenge, if you had to look at your client base, like do you see any golden zone area that's like good, or do you see that there's,
Well, it comes down to, you can look at your portfolio as number of properties or value of your properties. I've got clients that have $1 million worth of, $1.5 million worth of property.
Yeah.
They're also getting $2.5 grand a week in rent. So
for 130K a year.
Yeah. So
cool. Well, maybe run us through like a few scenarios. Like, I've got one of your clients that just had their finance approved on their 9th property today in a year. So
a bit over a year.
Bit over a year. Okay.
Yeah.
How old's this client roughly? We've had to get like
late
20,
late 30s,
40, 50,
late 30s,
late 30. Okay.
Yeah.
Late 30s, called 40 roughly.
Yeah.
So if you've got late 30s, 40. So this person started 18 months ago.
Yeah.
Did they own any properties before that? Apart from the house they live in?
I don't think so. Yeah, no investment properties.
Yeah, so one house to live in, added 9 properties in 18 months, about 40, cool. The person that just started and bought, they had 80 grand or 70 grand, 80 grand about a month ago, come on board. You can see I don't know if you can read that there, that one. So a new client, never invested, got referred to us by a friend. 2 properties, one was 150.
Well, referred by
that
the
last
neighbour.
person. Okay, so neighbour's that person. Okay.
Yeah, that person. Yeah. So
That's pretty funny. So the neighbour referred 150k property, rent for $350 a week, 10 years old. What was the other one? I can't remember where it was. Or was it a Perth property or was it a major regional?
Major regional.
Major regional. Okay. I know it was like 180 or something. So 2 properties in a month. You've got your client that's been with us bought the 2 properties in Queensland and the Gold Coast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those properties were like 150, 200 grand. These properties were like crap back in the day. People go, oh, those things don't go up in value. They've gone up from less than 200 to like 400 or 500 grand. So they've doubled, tripled.
Mm-hmm.
Bought a principal place. That stuck. They've got stuck a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Just pulled out equity and was able to go. And how old would that person be roughly?
He's in the mines, so in their 30s.
30s, yeah. Okay, cool. I thought he was in his 20s.
Maybe late 20s.
Would have been 20 at some
I don't
point.
look at their date of birth.
Okay. You've got, this one's a cool one, right? You've got an investor which started looking what I was doing like about 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I remember him coming to reno seminars. I used to do renovation seminars in my houses, and I'd be painting and doing all these different things. And he was stuck, and he had a couple of properties, and he had a business. He's self-employed, and it took him for years. I'd spoken to him maybe 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah. And then I'd spoken to him before that.
Oh yeah, okay.
So I'd spoken to him, and then spoke to him again, and then now it's just been a convergence of his business going all right. The loan product supporting his business, supporting his position. He's been able to use his position to. What's he bought? like
4 properties and some land, I think it was.
Okay, so there's 5.
Maybe 5 properties. Yeah.
5 properties in.
It's taken 3-4 months to get it across the line. So.
It's not just walking and going, oh, give me the best
No.
loan. It's structuring. What other things have come into play for this guy? Like to make sure it happen. Like you got the structuring of the loan. You got,
Well, just their position. So partner not working or partner not working.
I don't know. I think
so. We had to change a few things throughout the process. So
yeah.
Cool.
And then I've got here. Oh, you got your client. There's a new client that bought 5 since December.
Mm-hmm.
That referred his brother.
Yes.
Yeah. What happened there? I think we've got cleaners in here actually. Just bear with me for 2 seconds. Hey guys, just doing a live. All good, all good, mate. So, how would this couple be? They're a young couple, like
I'd say early 30s.
early 30s. Okay.
Yeah. Self-employed.
Early 30s, self-employed. And when you say self-employed, like self-employed has typically been, it's harder to get.
Tradies. It's a tradie.
Tradie is typically harder to get loans for that. So you could be, employed in a job and be in a better sort of position in some instances than being self-employed.
Yeah.
So 5 properties. What sort of price range? What sort of properties are we looking at? Like without giving away locations.
Yeah,
like
150 to 300 between that sort of price range.
Capital city, some of them. Bought one today in a capital city.
Yeah. 2, another one in the capital city, which is still going through.
The one that went through today was 175 grand.
Yeah.
Capital city. What's the rent, Wayne?
I'd be 350, 400.
Positive cash flow. It was in the heading.
Yeah, for sure.
$100 a week.
Yeah. I have another client, I think you mentioned her, and she watches this religiously.
Okay.
Yeah, she purchased, and I think you mentioned it last time, 175 or 180 she paid for the property in the capital city.
Okay.
Renting for 400. So she actually got offers for 500. But the
Oh yes.
So,
Yeah. There we go.
Same city.
Yeah, and that's someone at the older, at the
She's a bit older, yeah.
Yeah, at the older end of the scale as well. I've got one here which is really funny, which is the one you spoke about that you booked in for a call with me. Tell me about this guy's position, because
purchased a property off us in 2020.
Yep.
A few months later, I think or within 12 months, pulled some more equity out of the property.
Roughly what price did they?
It was about 180
And that's in Brisbane.
in Brisbane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pulled equity out, but hasn't got any further property.
Never bought. Right. Literally wasted a cycle. Yeah. And what's it valued at now?
Got it revalued recently for 390.
390.
No, it was 145.
145. Okay.
145 purchase and revalued for 390.
So it's tripled in 3 years. And I know that in that same complex, I had other people going, "Oh, the London property is on the wrong side of the street," or whatever. Units are shit. They're not a good
I
investment.
grew up in that area. So.
Units don't go up in value, man. I ain't the valuer, right? You're not the valuer. We're just here. The bank sends the value out. These are bank valuations that have come through. The 390 is fucking mad. So, yeah. So they're different. And he's in his early 20s, isn't he?
Yeah, mid-20s.
Mid-20s.
To late 20s.
There you go. That guy could literally be at 10 properties if he, and I'm going to have that conversation. If he's watching, we're going to have that chat when we speak next. But, if you just took like these situations, like you look at all our investors' portfolios and you look at the portfolios that are 10 years old and 15 years old, all I hear is, I wish I bought like 10 of them. I wish I bought 20 of them. I wish I did this. I wish I had more of this. Wish I'd done that. And it's like, if you got something that works, right? And you see people that go out there and like, they'll go to a seminar, they'll come on board and they'll go, okay, I'll buy 2 properties. They buy 2 and they're like, now I've seen a subdivision seminar I went to, or I've seen this, or someone told me I should be doing that. Next minute they're pulling out equity buying Bitcoin. Next minute they're out there pulling equity and trying to buy gold or silver, which costs you money to have the equity out, and the gold and silver doesn't bring you a cash flow, right? And then they just get stuck. They're chasing all these things, and Macca's have a system which is successful, right? You said that your daughter's going to work at Macca's. Macca's, I think, poisons us every fucking day, right? It makes people fat. I go to the shops and I'm like, what are those body shapes, right? I'm not trying to say, oh, I've been going to the gym, cool, right? But I sit there and I was looking at myself, I'm like, fuck, like you go there and it's like, just as much as people don't have 6+ property portfolios, people don't have 6-packs and stuff, right? And this food is poison, right? They're poisoning us with the food. They're pumping this stuff into us. The burger tastes like shit. We could go to a nice restaurant and get a burger. That burger tastes lovely, actually. Right? I'd love a Macca's burger. I don't have Macca's, right? I love it. But in perspective, you've got businesses that give you a tremendous burger with healthy options and all these things that are in it, and they may not be successful. And you've got a system that works, a system that's making profit. If you've got a system...
It's because we're conditioned from a young age.
Correct. We're conditioned to, I was just seeing this picture, which is out of the news article, just to respect and obey and cherish money, right? Money. Have you noticed it's like, the English language is very satanic, right? Money, which is like mono-eye, right? The one eye, the all-seeing eye. It's random. Anyway, we're conditioned to obey and not question, and, debt is bad, and money is good. I'm actually going to do a video on Monopoly, right? I'm actually going to do a video on Monopoly shortly. Did you know that Monopoly came out in 1933 as its first big hurrah, right? So Monopoly came out, was big in 1933. What happened in 1933, Wayne?
The recession.
The Great Depression.
Depression, yeah.
Great Depression, right? And it was also the Gold Confiscation Act, right? So the money in Monopoly was there to condition us to not want gold and silver and to accept funny pieces of paper, right, as money. And then in 1971, it got bought out by Hasbro and they pushed it harder. And you think, well, what happened in 1971? It was the petrodollar, it was the US dollar, and the goodbye of the Bretton Woods system, because it's there to condition us to accept that. So we've been told debt is bad, we've been told, this, that, the next thing, but if there's a system that works, why wouldn't you just replicate it? Like, Macca's, like, they throw a little pickle on, they throw that. That's just an affordable house, right? It's the same shit, same paint, same colours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Any other comments, Wayne?
Not really.
Not really.
No, you're doing well.
I feel like I've spoken a lot.
You're smoking a lot, mate.
I feel like I've overtaken. Like, I meant to have more stuff here for you. Is there anything else in here that we want to chat about?
No, we've hit retirement, haven't we?
We've hit retirement, you know.
Yeah.
It's
Time for the good life.
a lot of people.
Time for the health issues. Now, I was at my auntie's 80th birthday in Melbourne on the weekend,
Okay.
and you know, I saw my uncle for the first time in probably 20 years.
Yeah.
I saw my auntie for the first time in probably 5 years.
Yeah.
And took my mum down, drove up to Nambucca, picked my mum up,
Okay.
flew her down to Melbourne so that the three of them can spend time together. And
Yeah.
but it was sort of like, okay, you know, my uncle's, you know, he's travelling okay, he's got a few
Yeah.
health issues, and
Yeah.
mum's got a few health issues, and
Yeah.
it's like, well, you know, mum didn't set herself up for retirement, you know,
Yeah.
she's on the age pension.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't want to be like that. So that motivated me just to, you know, get a move on. And,
Being 65, so there's actually a riot happening right now, right? There's riots that are happening in, I don't know if it's Paris or, I shared the links the other day. Someone actually just texted me, Carlos, who texted me this the other day. And it was a video of a crisis. I think it's Paris. Let's just say it's Paris anyway, right? But they're having riots because maybe it's Switzerland, right? Maybe it's Switzerland. You could retire. The retirement age was 62 years old, right? They have now increased that to 74 years old before you can use your super. So all these people are now being told work forever, right? You have no control of your super. Your super's like a bonus for people. Lisa said, yes, it's France. It's France. It was it, right?
it's French, yeah.
So 74 years old, right? I don't know, it might be 74-year-olds watching us, right? And they could be inappropriate for what I'm about to say. 74-year-old, I don't know if our dicks will work when we're 74 years old, right? So traveling, enjoying your life, making things happen, right? Like, you want to be the wealthiest thing that you could have is youth on your side and fucking cash, and cash means nothing, right? But it's the options that it does for you. So the younger you can be with the more options in life. Like, I saw someone talking about it. It was like, would you rather be you today, whatever age you are, or would you rather be Warren Buffett, right? Warren Buffett, allegedly the richest man in the world, right? You say he's 90, right? Whatever. And he's worth billions, right? $100 billion, right? Would you want to be Warren Buffett at 90 with $100 billion, or would you want to be fucking 30 with 50 grand, right? I'd rather be 30 because the guy's going to be dead at 90 very shortly, right? He probably drinks a bit of weird things that he should be able to keep his youth on his side. But the reality of it is that you want options. You want options in your life, and the assets just give you more options, and knowledge gives you options. And the more options you have, people think that knowledge comes from, you know, going to university, listening to some other person that's been stuck in their position for the last 50 years, giving lectures on how you can be like them and be, you know, miserable in your job 30 years later and take 150 grand worth of debt and attach it to you and send you off to go and work the next 40 years to go and pay for that. It's not really that great. So what options do you have that you can create, and what things do you have in your arsenal at your disposal? Because your first questions that you ask to people, Wayne, when you speak to them, what do you ask? If someone calls you tomorrow and says, look, I want to be like one of Wayne's clients, like I always love hearing about Wayne's clients, what would you ask them? If someone called you tomorrow, what would you ask them?
I said, you know, why property? What are your goals?
Yeah.
You know, how long, you know, do you want to take to achieve it?
Yeah. What is your current position look like?
Current position, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're trying to understand, you know, and bridge that gap for your investors. Is like,
well, that's the thing. You know, you ask people for their long-term goals, they really don't have a clear response because they're afraid to not hit it. You know, there's out of fear.
Yeah.
I don't want to tell people what my goal is because I'm afraid if I don't hit it,
yeah,
I'll be embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know, so
I'd be afraid. I was afraid at 20, at 18, at 17. I was afraid of dying and not living my life. I was afraid of working in a job I hated, getting paid by someone that would disrespect me. And then if I met him at the pub, not that I'm a violent person, but if I met him at the pub, I'd want to bash him because it'd be, you know, you're taking orders and being, what the fuck are you doing? Get out of here, right? If it wasn't for like getting like $20 an hour, I wouldn't be here listening to you. So, like, the fears, you've got to flip them around. It's a mindset. What do you think the biggest thing holding people back at any age or at specific ages? Like, say, what would be the biggest thing holding a 30-year-old, 20 or a 30-year-old back? What do you reckon?
Well, it depends where they're at. You know, if they're you know, don't have too much commitment.
Yeah.
You know, it's maybe taking, you know, risking, taking on debt.
Yeah.
So.
And what about like the fear? Like I hear this one a lot. Like people might be like, okay, the wife's having a kid, right? I don't want to buy, or I'm scared of doing it because the wife's having a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, well, if your wife's going to have a kid, or you're planning on having a kid in 2 years' time, wouldn't that mean that you need to create more income, more options for your family, right? And it's sort of, there's a disconnection between a goal and, you know, what do you need? What are the bits that you need to get you there? Yeah.
And you know, I understand for, you know, the older generation, like 50s, late 40s, 50s, you know, they want to have a cash buffer.
Yeah.
You know, they don't want to invest everything. Yeah. Which is fine, but you know, when you're in your 20s, you want to go all in, pretty much. That was my sort of philosophy. So. Go all in because you got the time. You know, you stuff up. I've stuffed up. I've lost money. Yeah. You know, live and learn. Yeah. But you know, you move on from it. So.
Cool. And what do you think the thing holding older people back, let's say 50 or 60?
Well, yeah, they're rarely, you know, they don't want to take on any risk. Yeah. You know? So,
there's lack of option of time, which
and they're subject to the banks. Yeah, the banks aren't going to give them any money, so
Any other tips?
Just have fun doing it, I guess.
Enjoy the journey.
Don't stress. Don't stress too much.
I think having clarity as well. Like, if someone doesn't know, like, it's easy to have doubt because you haven't got the clarity of the pictures around you. If you know where you are and where you're going, then the bits in between can make sense because you've got two dots to draw the line.
Yeah, and get educated. You know, do your own research. Don't listen to people who aren't doing what you want to do. Yeah. Follow people. Everyone's online. Yeah. On TikTok, Instagram, stuff like that. Don't believe every word that you hear. Yeah. Through those sort of
question everything. Like even the stuff that I say and Wayne says. Don't just go, these guys. You question it, right? If it makes sense, then do something about it. If it doesn't make sense, then don't do something about it. It's very important. People are making all these decisions based on what other people are telling them to do and all these opinions, and most people don't have what they want. Right? It's like, I remember when I was a kid, there was this takeaway shop near my family's business, and it said, never trust a skinny chef, right? It always stuck in my mind, right? Because like a skinny chef wouldn't eat their food and all these sort of things, right? And I think about it like, I have people that go, I know this person, he does what you do. And it's like, he doesn't do what I do. But anyway, entertain me, right? It's like, no one's out there doing it, right? And I look at now, like I'm fucking going to the gym and trying to get fit and be healthy. And I look at it and I'm like, would I go and trust a fat PT, right? Would I go and, do these things? And it's like, no, if they're not practicing what their own principles, well then I'm just going to copy what they've done to get to where they are. And it's not going to be really successful. So you want to make sure that whoever it is, like whether it be your accountant,
a financial advisor,
your broker. If your broker's never got someone to 10 properties beforehand, well then they're not going to be able to get you to 10 properties, or it's going to be very hard. You're going to be having to bring them education to be able to get you there. So you want to know, yes, my team that I've got around me are going to be able to get me there with the knowledge and be able to overcome those hurdles when I get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I've seen there's a lot of questions coming through. Keep your questions coming through. I'm going to answer one of them. One of the questions is that there's been some news in the last 48 hours, which has come from Queensland, saying that they're going to put a rental cap, right, to cover the cost of crisis. That they're going to put a rental cap in Queensland to cap the amount of rent that you claim on a property. Right? Well, what is my thoughts on that? Well, there's a few things. Firstly, you create that cap. There's got to be points when you can put the rent up, so there'd be a lot more kicking people out of a property. So if I had a tenant and I couldn't put the rent up by $100 a week, I'd say, well, hey, we need the property vacant. We're going to do some renovations to it. Tenant pisses off. Change my mind. Put a new tenant in there. Get the extra $100 a week. So it'd be different ways, right? It'll actually hurt people a lot more. But most importantly, that if we look back, the government's wanted to come out and scrap negative gearing, right? The government's come out and negative gearing means that the government is subsidising you pittance, right? Really pittance for you as an individual to go and create public housing, because otherwise it's going to be a public housing issue. Where they're going to have to do housing commission, they're going to have to put a lot more money into building commie sort of housing sort of stuff. And then, did I just say commie? Community housing, right? Like the government, anything to do with the government is commie. But most importantly, like we look at Queensland, and 6 months ago they were trying to say that they were going to stamp duty people, land tax people for properties that are owned in other states, right? But that got squashed because they couldn't enact it. So a lot of times people will take these things out, the politicians or the commies out there will take these things out, but they can't enact these rules and regulations. So am I concerned by it? Absolutely not at all. And there will always be a way to work inside those parameters, right? You'd be sitting there from 50 years ago thinking, what, they're going to do this to you? What, they're going to have this? What, they're going to do that? The market will move with you. So I would never get fearful of a decision from a third party in making the decisions of me moving forward. And if there was a big issue somewhere, i.e. the market was to crash, or a town or a location or a suburb, that's when I'd see the opportunity to double down in that sort of market. So not concerned at all in that front. I guess we'll go through a few of these questions. It's pretty hard for me to look at these questions because I'm filming this from my phone. So if you do have some questions, send them through.
Blind as a bat.
Michael said they're going to make retirement age 67 in Australia this year. A lot of people won't make it to retirement. So here we go. Deals all over the place here in Auckland. Issue is the servicing rates being at over 8%. With reduced rates, will servicing become easier? Yes, that is probably one of the biggest opportunities.
Yeah.
We always like to workshop and prognosticate and look into the future and try and see what would happen if you pulled this lever, what would happen if you pull that lever. And I think it's important for critical thinking out there, and everybody should be doing that, because the more you think for yourself, the more successful you're going to be. And when you do sit there and go, okay, well, when we look at charts like this, we can see interest rates are going to be heading down. What would that mean for servicing? They could jump in and try and make it harder. I actually think servicing at the bank has become so much easier in the last little while, right? The last year has become easier. However, because the interest rates have gone up so high, people don't service. So if they drop the interest rates and leave those policies where they're at, servicing should go up through the roof. And that would mean the start of the next boom, and it would mean the biggest opportunity for people to go and refinance, to pull out equity, to get their best loan products and all those sorts of things. So really, have a chat to Wayne, really. That's what everyone should be doing. How do people contact you, Wayne?
They can send an email through to the admin team.
Yeah.
So admin@B.Invested.com.au.
Yeah. There's a link in the description. They can go straight to your Calendly.
There you go.
Book in a meeting with you.
Yep.
Yeah. They can call you. Yeah. And what do you do? Like, what like you said before, in what sort of questions, if someone calls you, what's going to happen? How does someone get, if they call Wayne up and say, hey Wayne, help me, right? I want to get to retirement, I want to get 100 grand a year income, I want to do this, whatever. What happens between booking in and pushing that link in the description and you getting to 9 properties like this guy from 18 months ago that own no investment properties?
Yeah, it's just looking at their scenario, looking at your current picture, and what you want to achieve, and
put him in contact with the right team. You'll identify. Here you go. Jason here booked a session with Wayne tomorrow.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, was that already booked, Jason or Wayne, or was
I don't look that far ahead.
Oh, okay. So did you book it today? So you would look at their position, and you've spoken to, how many people would you spoke? Like, let's just break it down. Thousands, right? Thousands and thousands of people. So like you'd speak to, I don't know, 10, 50, I don't know how many you speak to per day, but then it's
I started here with no clients at all, and I've got around 200 clients in the last 2 years.
So let's say 2 years, let's say you speak to 10 people a day, 5 days a week, that's 50 people a week, that's 200 a month, 12 months, that's 2,400, 2 years, 4,800 people, right, that you've spoken to. You've seen a lot of scenarios where someone would be stuck, they can't service, someone that's like got so much potential and you've got like, go, run.
Just like last month, I spoke to someone, 2 brokers said they couldn't service, went through to Zinger, got them a 300k loan. So put them in contact with the right people. It's like Rex Hunt, when he catches a fish, gives them a kiss, sends them back off, and they go out and do what they need to do. So how much does it cost to call you, Wayne? Apart from the phone call? Well, no one counts their phone call anymore, so basically nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
And we don't force people to come on board until they're ready. So we don't
force people.
We don't force people at all. Twist them or anything. But you want to make sure their finances in a good place, and they can do something.
Cool, and I've got a question here from Joel. It says, if I was ready to sign a loan contract today, would you hold off and reapply once interest rates drop in the coming months, or to have access to more cash via equity, or just pull the trigger now? It's a good question, but I would always take the money when I can. There's nothing stopping you from coming back in 2 months' time and pulling out then. It's better to have the cash now, so you can take action now and then come back and get more of that cash out later. So I wouldn't hold off at all, because it'll become easy to get loans, but the problem is that as more people get loans, there's a point, Wayne, 2 years ago.
But also that asset that is potentially right in front of you is going to go up in value.
Exactly.
So if you wait 2-3 months, it's going to be worth more.
There's going to be less people, because there's more people being able to get access to cash. So the more liquidity that's out there, the more people have access to the liquidity. The more people with the access to the liquidity have the ability to,
But property is a long-term game. It'll go up, it'll come down, it'll go up.
So you need the assets, and if you want to build a portfolio of 10 properties from 0 to 10, and it takes you a year to get to 10, or it takes you 3 years to get to 10 properties, well then 6 months out of the lowest, cheapest end of the market, or the ability, because there's never going to be, once they start printing more money, inflation is going to hit in, and things are never going to come back down. We haven't seen our food bill go down. We haven't seen anything go down. It can't be controlled. So you want to grab as much asset as you can and take it with you. So they say you can't take it with you when you're gone, right? But you can take it through hyperinflation, right? And you can't take your cash with you. So it's Matt, I'm hanging to speak with you, Birchie. Talk soon, mate. Well, thanks, and look forward to helping you. I personally, so wait, here's a question, right? Like, someone wants to talk to me or whatever. Like, someone's here, they're like, okay, I want to get the Birchie and have a chat with them and build my portfolio. How many of your clients do I speak to that sign up and come on board?
All of them.
Everyone. Yeah, every one of them. Yeah. So someone calls you, comes in for a session, has a chat with you, you talk to them about what options, you put them in contact with the right people, they're ready to go, you've got their finance, everything's been sorted, your mate that got I don't know who he is, but let's just call him your mate. The person that came in the other day, that 2 brokers said, no, you got the finance approved. The position would be then, okay, you've got access to your money. Do you want to utilise Nathan? Okay, cool. Then you get them on board, that then speak to me. Then what would happen from there?
We find them property.
I'd give them a strategy.
Nathan gives a strategy out and gets to work.
Find them some properties. I then go, this is what I think we should do in your position. Me and Wayne work together on helping the investor get to where they need to be. We'll work with you, build the strategy out, and then start putting those properties in place. And that's how they get to 10, 15, 20. So, cool. Got a couple of thumbs ups here, which is cool. Kane, looking forward to catch up, Wayne. Any advice for the 70s, thinking that there is healthy people out there?
That's good.
Or to banks that they're high risk. Actually, we've got a client, I'm sure, this one here, I'm just drawing the surname. This one?
Yes.
I think, is that your client or is it Gemma's?
No, I think it's Gemma's.
Yeah. This guy, he got his mum to come on board and he was scared of her money in the super, right? And she had like 300 grand or something. And it was the most uncomfortable one, right? Because I'm like, fuck, this chick has no time. She was like 85 and she was working still, right, as a nurse. And we bought her 2 or 3 properties in her position, and she's basically, it's much more than a bank would have in it, much more than a super would have in it. And those properties would have doubled by now. It was just like 2 years ago. So it's never too late, but when you're dealing with a bank, the bank has requirements of, good practice. And, there's a point when they say, well, if you're not going to be able to work for the next 30 years, you can't pay off the mortgage. And if you're 60, then you're going to be 90 when the mortgage gets paid off. And there's some things that we can do, like I've seen Rose be able to get people loans that might be 65, 66, something like that. And they're like, well, look, what about we structure the loan that it's a 15-year loan? We've got other income coming from here, there, and everywhere. When they go through retirement, the debt is going to be surfaced from their pension and what's inside their super. And the loan's been able to get structured, but the older you get, the harder it is. So if you are 18 today, get started. Don't think it's too young. If you're 30, well, you're never going to be 30 again. You're going to be 31, 32, 35, 40. The quicker you can get in, the more time that you have and the more options and variables that you have.
Yeah, the later you leave it, the more structuring you have to do, like being more precise in your structuring. So.
Yeah. Cool, and the more conservative with the triggers that you pull. So cool, guys. Well, thanks a lot for tuning in. Hopefully you've enjoyed tonight's. I feel like I spoke too much, Wayne. I feel like I spoke.
You always do. I'm not a big talker.
Okay. Cool. Well, if you guys, are looking at doing anything, or you want a second opinion on where you're at and what it is that you're trying to do, reach out. There's a link in the description. You can book a session to have a chat with Wayne. It's free. Don't need to be a tight ass. Reach out and we'll help you on your journey to get to where you want to be. So thanks, Wayne. I appreciate that. On behalf of our investors, they love what you do because you give so much care and love to them to make sure that they get there. So Perfect. Catch up soon, guys. Thanks, have a great evening. Be safe with those banks. Those banks are dodgy as fuck. So we'll catch up soon. Bye for now.
See you.